Quality Media presents The Mike and Mo Show. Now here are your hosts, Mike Calandrillo and Maurice Moten.
Welcome one and all to episode 24 of The Mike and Mo Show. Number 24, what a number. What a number. Willie Mays, Kobe Bryant, my dad. The greats go on and on. Regardless, welcome. We got a lot to get to today. A lot, especially in the world of NFL as training camps open. Goings on all across the country. But before we do that, Mo, welcome to the show. And what's new in your land?
What's new in my land? No sleep, first of all.
Oh, okay.
Because as you just said, NFL training camps are kicking off and news is coming in rapidly. So I'm constantly at my computers. Can't even say computers am attached to my phone. But we'll get into, like you said, a lot of NFL today. We'll get into Chris Sale's temper tantrum. And we'll talk a bit of Michael Jordan in the wrap-up that I had to blow up over on Facebook. But we'll get back to the NFL. And actually, the political world, there's a lot going on in the political world with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump doing their conventions. And I tie these political conventions to NFL training camp press conferences. Why? Because as Mike so eloquently says in most episodes, just keep it 100.
Yeah.
A lot of these convention people, these politicians, and these coaches do not keep it 100.
No.
They just don't. And I would feel like if I'm a Titans fan, if I'm a Lions fan, if I'm a Bills fan, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'd feel cheated. Yes, I said the Cowboys. I'd feel cheated if my NFL coach is telling me, yes, we're going to contend for the Super Bowl when you know you have an 8-8 team, when you know you have maybe a borderline playoff team. It does a disservice because this is why people don't trust politicians nowadays, because they get up there and they overpromise. And this is why there's distrust on both sides of the aisle with Dems and Republicans. I watched Hillary Clinton and I watched Donald Trump, and I'm not saying what side I'm leaning on, but there were fallacies in both their speeches where you say, well, I don't think that's going to happen. If you think inflation is going to come up 5%, let me know so I can prepare for this. If you think your team is going to be 7-9 and I'm a fan of your squad, don't tell me we're going to the playoffs. Just be honest. Again, as Mike said, keep it 100. Be like the weatherman, but just be more accurate about it. I can respect you more for it. But these NFL coaches are coming out yesterday and the day before as training camps are opening saying, yeah, we're going to compete. We're going to go out here. We're shooting for the Super Bowl. Ben McAdoo, the Giants head coach, talked about the Super Bowl. Well, while I believe the Giants have a chance, I don't see them as a Super Bowl team just yet. But yet he didn't shy away from Super Bowl talk. But if you are Jim Caldwell, head coach in the Lions, if you're Rex Ryan, who loves guarantees, stay away from Super Bowl predictions. Stay away from playoff predictions. Just say, hey, we're going to go out there. We're going to do our best. And we'll see where we end up at the end of the year. Todd Bowles is good for saying things like that. Very cool, calm, and collected. That's why I like him as the Jets coach. He doesn't really say Super Bowl or bust. He's out there saying, look, we're going to play our game, and we'll see where we are at the end of the season. As for these politicians, these coaches, keep it 100. Make Mike happy. Be honest to the people. Let them know what's really going on. Don't sell them fool's gold. Be honest.
So are you okay, though, with the fact that everybody tries to put a positive spin or a positive light on the upcoming season? Or do you really think that the fans need to not be toyed with emotionally then?
I feel like it's okay to say, it's okay to spin it and say, look, we're gonna have a good season. But do not add specifics to it where you say Super Bowl or bust. Because when you say things like that, or when you say it's playoff or failure or Super Bowl or bust, you're putting it on the fans to expect this. Because we all know most fans aren't rational. So whenever the coaches tell them whatever it is, they're going to take it verbatim and they're going to take it to the bank. It's like promising a kid something and then not following through on the promise. There's one thing you don't do with kids is you don't lie, because if you have them looking forward to something and that something doesn't happen, they throw a tantrum. And it's the same thing with fans. If you tell them, look, we're Super Bowl or bust and there's no Super Bowl in your city, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be mutiny. Your fans are going to want you fired. So you have to be careful, even for the coach's sake. You have to be careful about what you promise and if you're over-promising something before the season even starts.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's funny. It's nice to keep it, on the up and up, to be a sense of levity with it, and give everybody, a bit of optimism. But I mean, come on, really, Cleveland Browns. Do you really think you're going to the playoffs? I mean,
Exactly, and that's my point. That's my main point. Because again, Rex Ryan loves to do this for the Jets.
yeah,
If you get up to the podium and for it, as a coach, you know this. Even though you try to spin it positive, you try to give positive light, pretty much if you have a Super Bowl team or not.
sure.
And if you're coaching the Chargers, the Titans, the Bills, the Lions right now, I was kidding about the Cowboys to take a shot at our friend out in Indiana. But if you're coaching a bottom feeding team, at the beginning at training camp whether you have a Super Bowl team or not, and you just don't sell the fans short. We're not Boo Boo the Fool here. We know we could see you don't have a Super Bowl team. You don't have a quarterback number one. If you're trying to reclaim RG3's greatness in the league, you don't have a Super Bowl team, aka the Browns. If you have Mariota in his second year without a number one wide receiver, you're not a Super Bowl team. If you're the Chargers and you just drafted Joey Bosa, he hasn't even signed yet, you're not a Super Bowl team. So just please cut it out. I like the positive, but just don't overpromise.
Fair, very fair, and we'll see. I don't think Buffalo's getting to the Super Bowl this year, but you know what? if you ask Rex Ryan, they are. So good luck to all those teams that are on the wrong side of the record that will inevitably happen. But hey, as a Jets fan, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, I'm ecstated too, and we'll talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick in the next segment, open mic. But if you want someone who's going to keep it 100 people, I'm releasing my win-loss predictions for all 32 NFL teams today.
Ooh.
That'll be up on NFL Spin Zone. So if you feel your coach is lying to you, I'm going to tell you the truth because I keep it 100.
It's funny too you say that because I was speaking with a guy the other day that I know, and he's a huge Raider fan, and he was telling me 14-2, and I was I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." And he tried to tell me all the reasons why, and then said that the Raiders are only going to lose in Arrowhead, and was it in Denver? It might have been in Denver, and I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, you're everybody's darling. And I was like, look, my co-host knows everything there is about the Raiders. He says 10-6. He's like, no, you tell him 14-2. And I'm just like, you're out of your mind. Like, you're not keeping it 100 at all. You're shooting the moon here, and it's just, come on, you're putting too much pressure on your team, man.
Yeah, tell your friend. I don't know. Did he look at the schedule before he made his prediction?
You know what? I think so because he was really adamant about getting somebody I know in Oakland to get the Bud Light cans with the Oakland Raider logo on it. So.
Oh, listen. First of all, they're starting the season on the road at New Orleans. New Orleans, I know, isn't the same Super Bowl team that won years ago. But when you go into New Orleans and you got Drew Brees and he has 5 receivers to throw to, it's going to be tough. They have a back-to-back East Coast trip at Tennessee, at Baltimore. Those aren't great teams, but if you know football, you know West Coast teams going east, it's hard for them. They also have, as we discussed on previous episodes, they go east back-to-back at the Jaguars, at the Bucs. I think they're going to lose one of those games because, again, going west to east is tough. They also play the defending NFC champions. That's going to be tough. And this is a team that hasn't been on the primetime slot. And I believe they had 3 primetime games this year. So they're going to stumble in maybe 1 or 2 of those. So you go back. As a matter of fact, show your friend or let your friend listen to this show and hear my explanation because I'm speaking truth here. I have the Raiders going 10-6, as you said. And I'm sticking with that prediction because you can't have a team that's been in a 14-year playoff drought all of a sudden go 14-2.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere to have the best record in the league. It's just not going to happen with the Raiders. I do like their nucleus. It's going to be exciting. Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper, Derek Carr. But 14-2 is straight ridiculous.
Yeah, the only
respect.
Well, I don't know if he's a friend, but he's an acquaintance. But regardless, the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion, may be the only team that goes 14-2, and even that could be tough. Coming off of a little bit of a letdown in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. I mean, even I have the Carolina Panthers going 10-6 only because I feel like people are underestimating the loss of Josh Norman. They really don't have any number 1 cornerbacks back there. They're going to have to start a rookie. So I don't feel good about that when you're playing in the same division as a Drew Brees, as a Jameis Winston, who has 2 giant wide receivers, Vincent Jackson, and Mike Evans on the outside, and then you got the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So they're going to be susceptible to some points being put on the board.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a plethora of fantastic information from Maurice Moulton from now until January. So just buckle your seatbelts and get ready, because it is going to be fast and furious. That is it for the cold open. We will be right back with Open Mic, and like I said, brace yourself. Open Mic. A's are here again. Geno Smith's on the bench again. I'm pretty excited, if you can't tell, that the Jets finally re-signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. So Mo, is it correct that it is a 2-year deal?
Yeah, that's right. It's been reported widely that it's a 1-year, $12 million deal, fully guaranteed, but it's actually a 2-year deal. But it's just that his contract on the second year voids 5 days after the Super Bowl, and this was done to spread his $10 million signing bonus, so that he has a $7 million cap hit in 2016, and then a $5 million cap hit in 2017. This allows teams flexibility to kind of, I guess, have flexibility just in case they need to move cap space around and sign players or pick up a player during the season. But basically, his $12 million cap hit is not going to take place all in 2016. They basically cut it 60-40. So it is a 2-year deal, but it's just not widely reported because of the specifics. But what we need to focus on is that he is back in New York for at least 1 more year. And as you said, a lot of people are rejoicing because that means Geno Smith is not starting. Ooh. Obviously, I'm one of those people who felt like Geno Smith deserved another chance because I think he would have done well with the supporting cast. I won't be able to pick Geno Smith in our fantasy league.
No, you still have to. You still have to. So.
That's not going to happen. But Fitzpatrick comes back, and I must admit that him coming off his best season gives the Jets their best chance of winning because, again, they have a rough schedule to start the season in their first 6 games, and then it lightens up. So it's good for Brandon Marshall. It's good for Eric Decker. It's good for the Jets right now. Fitzpatrick was pictured with Brandon Marshall on Instagram, I believe, a week prior in Chicago. They reconnected. If you don't remember, Fitzpatrick wasn't answering Brandon Marshall's text. There wasn't a full explanation for that. But what Brandon Marshall did, he did something really stupid after the deal was announced. He got into a bet with Antonio Brown to say who's going to have the most receiving yards. If Marshall wins, Brown has to give him a Rolls Royce. And if Brown wins, then he has to give Marshall has to give him a Porsche. And Brown made the point that the Rolls Royce costs $100,000 more than the Porsche, but whatever, they're going to make the bet. And I think Marshall's overselling himself and his connection with Fitzpatrick because Brown is going to be the undisputed #1 option in Pittsburgh. No Martavis Bryant. Ladarius Green, the tight end, is going to be out. So he's going to be the main guy. He's probably going to lead. He's probably going to come very close to 2,000 receiving yards. Brandon Marshall still has to split time or split targets with Eric Decker on the other side. And Fitzpatrick isn't exactly the strong-arm quarterback that's going to stretch the field. He's more of a dink-and-dunk passer who can hit his big receivers. So Marshall's going to clearly lose this bet. But going back to the Fitzpatrick situation, he's basically betting on himself, which is a good thing. And apparently he wanted the 1-year, $12 million contract the whole time. The Jets offered that 3-year, $24 million contract, which is $8 million per year, which he felt was a slight. He felt that was backup money. And the Jets finally coughed it up. But there's a quick caveat. Nick Foles was released right before Fitzpatrick came in, because apparently Fitzpatrick went to the Jets facility at 7 p.m. on the dot because the Jets had a soft deadline for him that if he didn't come in by 7 p.m. that they were going to move on. And ironically, Nick Foles was released hours before in the same day. So it's speculatory that the Jets could have went after Nick Foles if Fitzpatrick didn't come through by 7 p.m. So he said, oh, crap, let me go in and get my job and get my money before Nick Foles gets it.
The only issue that I have with Ryan Fitzpatrick is that he really dramatized this entire process, and by saying that he wouldn't wish this process on anyone meaning that he was, he said, she said, was he going to be a Jet, was he not going to be a Jet? Sir, you still got $12 million for the first year without your incentives and your guarantees. So, I mean, pump the brakes. You're a multimillionaire once again. You have a fantastic opportunity to lead your team to the playoffs and possibly more. So let's be real when we're talking to the media about things, because it's football. It's really at the end of the day, and you're still making a whole lot of money. About that little potential wager that the two Pro Bowl receivers had, the only reason I give Marshall at least props for betting on himself, not exactly keeping it 100, keeping it like 92, is the fact that, Big Ben recently has been made of glass. Every year it seems like he misses a couple of games here, a couple of games there. Obviously, if he goes down, that gives Brandon Marshall a slight edge. Well, I'd rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick than whoever the backup currently is with the Steelers. So, and again, Le'Veon Bell is coming back, so he's going to take some targets away. Of course, we'll see what happens with that 4-game suspension, but I like the fact that Brandon Marshall is sticking with his guy. Of course, if I had a $100,000 Porsche and I wanted a $200,000, Phantom, I might make the bet too. So, all in all, it's a win for now.
Yeah, it's definitely a win for now. But if you check out Fitzpatrick's photo at the contract signing, this dude looks like he belongs on a coin. Like, he looks like an old president from the 1800s. Like, he had no haircut. Like, his beard density is crazy. He's got like a mini packed-in fro. Like, the dude looks like a straight Abraham Lincoln disciple when he signed that contract. I mean, no barbers in Jersey or his hometown. I'm wondering.
Nope.
But real quick though,
yeah.
I feel bad for Geno because it feels like he was the plan B. It's like the girl who says, "Well, I'll go out with you if John isn't available. I'll go out with you." And it so happened that John was available, so the Jets will not be going out with Geno Smith. I root for Geno Smith to get a second chance and totally blow up, because it would make not Todd Bowles so much, because I think Rex Ryan really hurt Geno Smith's development. It would make Rex Ryan look really, really low on the totem pole as far as head coaches are concerned. But I still root for Geno Smith. He's not going to get the player snap this year if Fitzpatrick stays healthy, but Geno Smith, I'm still rooting for you.
I root for Geno Smith to get traded to another team. Obviously not the biggest fan of him. That's fine, but yeah, where does he go from here? If he doesn't play a snap this year, it doesn't help his development. If he isn't going to be the starter next year, which, if the Jets do well, why would they not bring Fitzpatrick back another year? He's got to go elsewhere. I mean, there's plenty of other teams that are in need of a guy who still has some sort of potential. I mean, obviously, Cleveland taking a chance on RG3 when they say Josh McCown actually looks better right now in training camp. That doesn't help RG3. Who knows what happens with Denver? There's so many places that Geno Smith could go and potentially get an opportunity, and it just seems like this Jets team has had their full of him, because if they really believed in him, there's no reason that they would have brought back Fitzpatrick and then, drafted Hackenberg. There's a lot of reasons as to why the writing is on the wall for this guy to ask for a trade or hope to be released or one or the other, because, it just seems like his time in New York is over, basically.
Yeah, pretty much is. His contract ends at the end of the year. We all know that Fitzpatrick is the right now and Christian Hackenberg is the futures. I believe the Jets are going to try to keep him around just in case Fitzpatrick does get hurt, because remember, he did miss a game against the Rays where he got hurt very early in the first quarter. So they're going to keep Geno around as a backup. But at the end of the season, he's probably done, and they turn the reins over to either Bryce Petty or Hackenberg if Fitzpatrick takes a decline in his production.
Peyton Manning got cleared by Al Jazeera TV. Let's talk about my man, old Noodle Arm himself. After much debate on whether he took HGH or didn't take HGH, or his wife was taking HGH, well, it looks like the NFL has officially cleared Peyton Manning of any wrongdoing. Now, you, Mo, are a bit of a pessimist when it comes to people I like, so you'll probably tell me that the NFL just decided to sweep this under the rug because Peyton retired. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong.
Okay.
I actually didn't put a lot of stock in these Al Jazeera reports. If you read the reports, this guy, Charlie Sly, who's a former Guy Institute employee that made the claims, and he also recanted them. He sounds like a total clown. He really didn't work at the clinic that long, and he just kind of like heard that Peyton Manning was going there with his wife, and he threw out these names. And it's very convoluted, but if you read the reports, you'll see that very quickly that Sly is he's an unreliable source, and there are reports right now out that Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers were also on the report, and the Packers are actually pressuring both to come out and just have an interview just to kind of rebuke the claims, I'm guessing. But since Sly is such an unreliable source, and this is coming out that Peyton Manning's name is cleared, I don't think Matthews or Peppers have anything much to lose right now. But I think Sly is part of this generation where we just throw out big names and information and hope it sticks. And you see it online a lot where people spread these rumors and they go viral. Oh, person X is accused of Y, and people run with it because it's a big name and it's a juicy story. And I think this guy just did it just to get his name in the papers. And Al Jazeera apparently is a respectable media outlet, but well, he just kind of ruined it with his story, with his Fox story of Peyton Manning and his HGH use. And I'm actually happy that he got his name cleared. The guy went out as a winner. Let him do his commercials and be happy. I know one thing. I will call you out on one thing. When these allegations are coming out, these were not on the show's rundown. You absolutely did not want to talk about this, and I let it be because I actually thought that it was bogus as well. Because if you saw Manning in his first interview after these allegations came out, he's very adamant that he didn't do it, and I pretty much believe him because why would he taint his name at the end of his career? He's probably going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks in the game, before Tom Brady retires and overtakes that, but he's going to be one of the best retired quarterbacks in the game, outside of the game, and why would he taint his name at that stage in his career? It just didn't make any sense to me. The guy worked hard. He had multiple neck surgeries. I know guys use HGH for recovery, but I just don't see Manning doing that in a cheap sense to kind of get back in the game. If he was done, he would have retired.
I mean, for all listeners, you know by now that the Mike and Mo Show is all about journalistic integrity. Okay, we're not trying to hit anybody with some slander. We ain't trying to get some lawsuits thrown our way. We may talk rumors, transactions, possibilities, but we don't like to just throw out information, some fluff to get some Twitter numbers, some Facebook likes. It's not about that. And like Mo said, it is a lot of that approach. It's blogging, it's this, it's that. It's let's get how many views I can get, how many impressions. So it's a dangerous way of writing. It's a dangerous way of relaying information. So like I said, I'm glad for the sheriff. He's already doing some fantastic commercials. Keep it up, my man. Enjoy your time, and I'm sure sooner rather than later we will see him as the president of operations for an NFL team like the Titans, since he still lives in Tennessee. Or he can go to any TV network and say, I want to be your lead, Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning countdown guy, because he's just a brilliant football mind.
Yeah, people, please exercise journalistic responsibility. Check your sources. When you read these stories online, on Facebook, on Twitter, check your sources. A lot of times, these places where you're reading these news stories from are on bogus websites where people look for page views. So
just look at the URL. If the URL is like UFO alien files 7744.org/government, it's like, come on, it's not real. Don't share it. I don't want to see it. I will unfollow you.
Yeah, absolutely. I get people all the time who send me stories and go, "Is this real?" And I just say, "Dude, scroll to the bottom." Yeah. Some of them even say it's a satire.
Yeah.
And you can just check the previous stories. Like, if you see a story that says chicken grows to the size of an alien at 500 pounds in Waco, Texas, it's a fake site.
Exactly. And Waco, Texas has enough problems with Baylor University right now, so let's not talk about them. But sticking in the NFL, my man AP, my man who's one of the only true 4-down backs in the NFL. Reports are coming out that this will potentially be his final year in Minnesota because the team has to re-sign their quarterback, who, in my opinion, they're still waiting to blossom, Teddy Bridgewater. So it looks like AP could be looking for greener pastures. Mo, at $18 million next season, that's a lot of money for a guy on the wrong side of 30. But now that Dallas has potentially their running back of the future in Ezekiel Crop Top Elliott, where could we see AP going? Is this a smart move for Minnesota to even put this out there? What are we doing? And with all these teams that are supposed to be keeping it 100 or keeping it, positive, this seems like a backwards kind of a move for a team that, made the playoffs last year.
Well, as long as Peterson's not going to wear a crop top wherever he goes,
oh God, no,
it's fine. But Peterson, number one, we have a theme here today about keeping it 100. He needs to keep it G and say, look, you guys either pay me my $18 million or I'm gonna leave because I'm tired of these Kevin Durant type of situations where, or whoever free agent has a situation where they can leave next year. You go to the office and say, look, are you going to pay me this money? No, okay, I can look elsewhere. Please trade me. If you are, cool, it's over, it's done with. All this media hoopla, will he stay, will he go? All that goes away. But I think the Minnesota Vikings will probably go elsewhere because, as you said, $18 million is a lot of money for a running back over 30. Running backs aren't even valued at that high anymore. Right now, Peterson is making, on average, $5 million more than the second running back on the list as far as paychecks are concerned. He's at $14 million. The Kansas City Chiefs running back Jamal Charles is at $9 million. So I don't see him getting $18 million for the Minnesota Vikings unless they do some salary cap magic and move things around, because NFL teams have a propensity to do that. But I don't see Adrian Peterson wanting to give up his $18 million to stay with the Vikings, especially if they're not a playoff contender. Now, if they're close to a Super Bowl, I could see the Minnesota Vikings trying to keep him there as the missing piece, especially if he leads the league in rushing yards again. I mean, if you think about it, over the past few years, Adrian Peterson has been the Vikings offense. Not Christian Ponder, not Teddy Bridgewater, not Gus Frerotte. It's been Adrian Peterson for nearly a decade. So the Vikings most certainly need him if he's still producing at a high level. But if you look at the 2017 draft choices at running back in the next year, you got Leonard Fournette out of LSU, you got Dalvin Cook out of Florida State, you got Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford, you got Nick Chubb out of Georgia. So if they do let Peterson go, there are options to replace him because, as you know, unless you're the Dallas Cowboys, running backs don't go in the top 5. So the Vikings will most likely have a shot at one of those running backs next year in the draft.
So for all of our fantasy football players out there, should they feel confident drafting AP either with the first pick or a first-round pick as the first running back taken off the board?
As far as this year is concerned?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because he's going to play his heart out because if you're Adrian Peterson, you don't want to get injured or you don't want to have a down season before a big decision comes up on your contract. You want to have a great season so that it either forces the Vikings to either pay you or it's going to entice another team to pay you once that decision comes up. So if you're going to pick Adrian Peterson at the top of the draft, please do so. The guy's been over, I believe, or close to 1,300 yards in his last few years where he's actually played most of the season. When he's healthy, he's money.
All right, so feel confident drafting AP with the first overall pick and hope that he doesn't blow out his ACL. I mean, that is the danger of any running back in the NFL, especially a guy that's going to touch the ball as many times as he's going to do. But like Mo just said, upwards of 15 touchdowns a year, possibility. He's not going to catch a ton of balls out of the backfield. It's never been his iota, but the things that he can do as the number one back without having to worry about someone else, breathing down his neck, Jared McKinnon, is going to be something that's going to go a long way. So we shall see.
Quick thing, though. I shouldn't be offering this information because you will be an adversary during my fantasy football league, but Adrian Peterson is actually working on catching out of the backfield, so that may be an added point to his game in the upcoming season. He's very adamant about being able to catch out of the backfield and being a complete back in that sense. So I see him gaining about 400 yards on the ground. He may catch a few touchdown passes because, as you know, Teddy Bridgewater is not a downfield thrower. He's going to dink and dunk, and if he throws off to Adrian Peterson, his yards after the catch could be monstrous. So I'm putting that out there. I'm putting myself out there. Mike will probably still Adrian Peterson now before me, but I'm going to throw that out there because I'm spotting your 5 points almost ready with that information.
But why would he wait almost 10 years into his NFL career to finally become an all-around back? I mean, isn't this something you would have done, I don't know, like in your first or second year out of Oklahoma? I never quite understood that because, I mean, I get that he's been so dominant on the ground, but he's never been a guy that, like, is a Le'Veon Bell type. I mean, he's never been that guy that can come out, and he does kind of have fumble issues, throughout his career. That's always been a bit of a thing. So why now?
You're absolutely right. And I think it's because he's trying to lessen, because when you're a running back, think about it. When you're a running back, you take a lot more hits than you would as a wide receiver.
Sure.
So I think they're going to try to maybe lessen his workload as a running back as far as carries are concerned and give him more passes in the open field so that he's taking less hits head on.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense. Again, it's an added dimension that if he can bring that to his game, then there's no reason as to why he shouldn't be everybody's first pick off the board in every draft. I mean, we'll get into some fantasy talk in the upcoming weeks as we get closer to the season because again, I have won so many fantasy leagues that I feel I have to give the listeners my brilliant approach to how to win your fantasy football league. Like again, Mo's gonna draft everybody that either plays on Oakland or the New York Jets, and that's just not how you win. You play the game to win. Okay?
You play to win the game.
You play the game, you win the game. Football, playoffs. Talk about playoffs. I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent.
Listen, I brought that information for you and Laura out there in Indiana. I know she's gonna pick all Ohio State people anyway. Once they get out of jail.
That ain't gonna happen.
That was a help for you, Mike. So I just threw you a bone there, so you have no reason to lose all your football games in that fantasy league. Maybe you'll hit 500 if you pick up Adrian Peterson. You worry about yourself there, homeboy. I got this. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna draft players under 5'7", and I'm gonna dominate with speed and agility. So let's move on to Believeland, beautiful Believeland, home of LeBron James, and now Josh. I'm not selling cars, Gordon. Josh Gordon has been reinstated. Kind of. He is going to be slapped with a 4-game suspension, which I'm really kind of confused. I mean, the man was just suspended for a season. Now he's another 4-game suspension. I don't really understand how that added up. I mean, whatever. Roger Goodell's got his issues. Regardless, Mo's a fan. Mo feels that Josh Gordon is going to stay on the straight and narrow. I am a pessimist. I don't know. I mean, I would love to because again, the guy's got all the talent in the world, and it would be fun to see him, have the ball thrown opposite another Baylor Bear. But again, four games is a lot, and in an NFL season that only has 17 weeks. There is a rumor that the Philadelphia Eagles would love to trade for Gordon, but again. That could be smart because Cleveland's not going anywhere, but according to Gordon, he's saying all the right things. Super happy, super glad that he's even been given another chance by Cleveland. Especially after the Johnny Manziel drama. So I mean, Mo, what do you see out of Gordon this year? Are we talking Pro Bowl? Are we talking mediocre? I mean, what should we expect from a guy with a very cloudy past? Well, as you say, he's serving a 4-game suspension, but I think with his talent, he could still reach 1,000 yards, especially if he stays in Cleveland, and RG3 is pretty good because opposite him is a rookie in Corey Coleman. So automatically, he's going to be their number one option once the day he steps on the field. So he's going to get a lot of targets. So again, if you're going to draft Josh Gordon, I wouldn't draft him at the top, obviously, but he's going to still have a pretty good season. If you want a kind of a wide receiver 2 or 3 steal, Josh Gordon is your guy. But as you said, he has to stay away from Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel is his friend. He said this, that Johnny Manziel is his friend and he'll be his friend and support him regardless of what the media says. But for his professional purposes, for his professional life, he needs to separate himself from Johnny Manziel. Manziel, I believe, punched somebody at a wedding reception or something recently. And he did apologize and he did make up for it. But Johnny Manziel has his own issues, and even Gordon said this, that they're both headed on 2 different paths right now. They're headed in opposite directions in their careers. And he needs to just focus on getting back on the field, rehabilitating his image. And I watched his press conference, and as you said, he said all the right things. He's pretty contrite. So I have faith in Josh Gordon. Chris Carter even spoke to Josh Gordon. He spoke about him on a radio show last year saying that the guy is pretty smart. If you hear him talk, he has his wits about him. He just makes poor decisions. And this goes back to what I was saying about Johnny Manziel, is that sometimes you could be a good guy and make good decisions on your own, but when you get around the wrong crowd, you fall into a bad category. And as long as he stays away from the bad crowd, he can walk the straight and narrow, and he can also be a fantasy asset. He could be an asset for the Cleveland Browns. I'm really excited for that Baylor triangle they have in Cleveland. RG3 at quarterback, Josh Gordon on one side, Corey Coleman on the other. I think they can have something special. I predicted them to go 5-11 this year. I'm not budging off that, even with Josh Gordon on the field. But they have a propensity to maybe upset a few teams with Josh Gordon at the top of his game. So I'm rooting for Josh Gordon. I'm rooting for Cleveland. I'm rooting for Hugh Jackson.
It's crazy to think this guy's still only 25 years old, and he's been in and out of the NFL more times than I can count. So it's nice to see a guy that get another opportunity, regardless of what's going on in his personal life. Hopefully he can stay on the path, because he is a heck of a talent. And again, the people of Cleveland really need the Browns to do something positive, because it's been so bad for so long.
And think about this. He actually led the league in receiving yards in a year, I believe he missed 2 games. In 2013, he missed 2 games and still led the league in receiving yards with 1,646 yards through the air, 9 touchdowns. So again, if you're a little iffy on Josh Gordon, take the flyer on him, especially if he's like your wide receiver 3. Take the flyer on this guy, because he's going to be the number 1 option for RG3. He's already well acquainted with RG3. As I said, they both played at Baylor together, so he's a guy you want to keep your eye on, and again, I'm rooting for him.
All right, let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys, and their atrocity, which is a front office. It appears that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be fined roughly $250,000 for having 3 players that were suspended at one point or the other in the past season, and it just continued with Randy Gregory again being suspended. I don't really have much sorrow for this organization that continues to take chances on guys who just can't get it together. We saw it last year with Hardy and his allegations, and now it looks like nobody wants to touch him. What are they doing? Is it just that Jerry Jones is a really nice guy and he's hoping to help these guys out, or is it more of he's looking to not spend a lot of money on a guy that he can potentially get something out of? How should we look at it, especially Cowboys fans? Is this a good look for them? On paper it's not, but are they doing the right thing, or is this just a huge mess?
You bring up a good point. You can look at it 2 ways. You can look at Jerry Jones as making bad decisions, or you can look at it as him being charitable. And I know we referenced Steinbrenner a couple episodes ago about giving Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden chances even after their checkered past.
Yeah.
But, however, Jerry Jones has filled it to the brink. He's done it. He's overdone it. Because if you look at the guys who are suspended on his roster right now, Rolando McClain had incidents with the Raiders, and he had off-the-field incidents, and the Raiders eventually waived him. This is after he had like a Facebook rant saying he's not a Raider anymore. The guy signs with the Ravens April 2013, then retires a month later. So the guy, you question his love of the game in a sense, and you don't want a guy like that in your locker room. Then you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who was suspended multiple times in the college ranks. He appealed his suspension, and it was denied by the NFL. Then you got Randy Gregory, who was suspended at Nebraska and then failed a drug test at the combine. This is at his job interview. He fails a drug test. That should tell you that's a guy you want to stay away from as your first-round pick. But no, Jerry Jones goes ahead and takes a chance. And Jerry Jones is known as taking chances. He's a businessman. This is how he got to where he is today. We get it. But there's a limit to everything. And I look at Jerry Jones right now kind of like the late great Al Davis. He took a lot of chances at the end of his tenure before he passed away, and it didn't work out for him. And Jerry Jones is doing the same thing, and it's not working out for his team, at least in the totality of things, where this team is going to start the season without their pass rushers. They're not going to have they're going to be a good team, but they're not going to have a pass rush. So against teams with good offensive lines and a good passing attack, the Cowboys are going to struggle, and this is why I think they could possibly lose their opening game to the New York Giants when the season opens, because they don't have anyone to pressure Eli Manning. So Jerry Jones, this is an indictment on him. He needs to figure out a vetting process to get at least good quality players above the shoulders on his roster instead of looking at just production, because that was behind him signing Greg Hardy, and you see how that worked out. And he needs to very carefully craft this team, because this team now, Tony Romo is 36 years old. That window of opportunity is going to close very quickly especially if Tony Romo has another injury. I know they have a 3-man running back system, but he needs to think about the now. He needs to win now, or things are going to get restless out there on the ranch. So he needs to figure this out, bring in some good quality pass rushers, not only on the field, but from the neck up. Yeah. Jerry Jones, you're screwing up Get it together.
And let's not forget, this is a team that currently employs Des Bryant. And at any moment, this guy could go off. And, there is some reports that he was another NFL player that trashed a rental house in this offseason. So, not really sure about what the fun is in trashing someone else's property, but we have seen that from multiple reports this season. So, that is it for Open Mic. We're going to be right back with Building Momentum. We're going to talk a couple of MLB transactions. We'll be right back.
It's now time for Building Momentum.
Mike, have you ever taken a wine bath ever in your life? Ever?
No, but I have taken an Epsom salt bath. Does that count?
Yeah, nowhere close to what Amari Stoudemire has had in his career. He's taken wine baths to extend his career and keep himself healthy. And you got to give praise to Amari Stoudemire. He came to the Knicks during the downtrodden times in the franchise. Think about this. When he came to the Knicks, pre-stat, this was the Knicks starting lineup. Just listen to this, okay? Chris Duhon at point guard. Wilson Chandler, Danilo Gallinari, Al Harrington, and David Lee. That was the Knicks starting five before Amari Stoudemire got there. They were a 29-53 team. He gets to the Knicks, and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs. Now, I know Carmelo Anthony came right after Amari Stoudemire, after the 2 games after the All-Star game in 2011. But I question whether Carmelo Anthony would have come to New York without Amari Stoudemire already being there. Because remember, when Anthony came to the team, that was the big story. Oh, Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony, they're becoming buddy-buddy. They want to work together. They want to bring New York back to prominence. But that was Stoudemire's mantra before Anthony even got there. He said he wanted to not go back to New York, but go to New York and build this franchise from the ground up. Again, they were downtrodden. They had 9 seasons of not even 40 wins, and they had 1 playoff appearance in those 9 seasons. So he boosted the franchise up at a bad time, so you got to give him props for that. I know people are going to say, well, he was injured all the time. Well, what about that time he punched a fire extinguisher after Game 2 of the Miami Heat series in the playoffs? I get all of that, but he actually started the rejuvenation in the Big Apple, and you got to give him credit for that because he came there when everyone else said no, I'll go elsewhere. So again, the people being pessimistic, the guy left Steve Nash, who's probably the best passing point guard in the game, for the Knicks and Chris Duhon. Like, seriously, instead of choosing a big 3, he chose the Big Apple in a tough market, and I give props to Amari for that. Salute to him.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to see that the organization, signed him for that, that one-day deal so that he could retire a Knick because, obviously his heart will forever be in New York, and that's what he said, via social media. I'm kind of surprised that he retired, to be honest with you. I mean, I know he's 33, which again is not old, even for the NBA. Most guys retire in NBA 38, 39, they're playing longer these days. We realize that he suffered a lot of injuries in his career, the detached retina, microfracture surgery on his knee. And again, this guy came in the NBA at 18 and he was an absolute hurricane. And that's the thing that people seem to forget about these guys that show up out of nowhere and are just absolutely electric. Tracy McGrady. I mean, there's so many guys like this that people say, oh, well, they were hurt, or oh, they ended their career, as a this or that. But remember how good these guys were in their prime. 18 years old, the guy won Rookie of the Year. I mean, he was all NBA first team 2007. 2002, he just continually went off. And unfortunately, signed with the Miami Heat last year, wasn't, for whatever reason, didn't get an opportunity to really play. I'm sure that had a lot to do with, being disenfranchised with basketball in general. And again, doesn't need the money. I'm sure he did the right thing with it. He owns a professional team in Israel, so if he really wants, he can go back there and play. But I just want fans in general to just appreciate what they got to see, whether it was not long enough in your opinion or not. It's still a human being that played the game to the best of his ability, had some fantastic years, and at least went out on his own terms.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you mentioned his Rookie of the Year. Quick stat. Him and LeBron James are the only players to win Rookie of the Year out of high school. So think about that. He's going to be in record history books forever for that. And you got to look at what he's done with the Phoenix Suns. I know those are probably his glory years. But again, it was more about his gesture coming to New York than what he did on the court for the Knicks. Again, he had a good first season there. He made the All-Star game. He was the first Knick in, I believe, since Patrick Ewing to start an All-Star game. in the Knicks uniform. So again, he did some unbelievable things. But of course, in this society, we live in the moment, so we remember the most recent thing, and that's him being injured on the bench. But that's not how I remember Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah, I mean, remember 2010, 2011, his first year. I mean, he literally put together a franchise record. What was it? 30-point games 9 times. I mean, that's insane. I mean, he was on fire, and when he developed that little outside jumper, that 17-foot, 18-foot jumper, he was unstoppable for a good 2-3 seasons. And again, yeah, he could have stayed with Steve Nash. I mean, they had a heck of a team. He took the chance. Look, he got paid well, but again, it's not easy to go from that to a Knicks team that was searching for an identity. And yeah, when the Knicks released him, he went to Dallas, and maybe he should have stayed with Dallas instead of going to Miami the following year. But he was on a little bit of that hunt for the ring. So who knows? Maybe we'll see him back at some time this year, next year. It all depends. I still think 33 is a young man. Not that he necessarily needs to play the game, but if there's a team that comes calling, a la San Antonio or somebody that he can potentially, help. We may not have seen the last of him, but if we did, at least I know Mo and I are appreciative as Knick fans for, for the times that he spent in a Knick uniform, because it was a lot of fun to watch him when he did.
Yeah, unfortunately for Amari Stoudemire going to the Spurs, I believe David Lee already beat him to the punch, because David Lee signed a 2-year deal with the Spurs to try to win a ring there. Yeah. So if Amari does come back, I'm happy for him. Hopefully he comes back trying to win a ring. But we're going to move on to something that will make Mike, that probably made Mike happy, probably happier than a schoolgirl at a Justin Bieber concert years ago. The Yankees traded Aroldis Chapman, and they're going to pick up 4 players and a main asset, I believe, Gleyber Torres, the shortstop. He was also suspended for domestic violence in 29 games, which is another story that I won't get into right now. But Mike, did this trade make you happy? A lot of people, shout out to my guys Kenny and Nate, who covered the story on Empire Writes Back. They said that the Yankees made out like bandits on this trade.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, because Aroldis Chapman is a free agent, as soon as this season is over. And the Yankees did it. They did approach him in June about signing a long-term contract extension, and he was non-committal. So the Yankees did the smart thing. You cannot let a guy who they traded for from Cincinnati in the offseason. They gave up 4 prospects of their own. Only one guy was a top 10 in Rookie Davis. So again, you want to recoup what you gave up, and if you look at the trade, what they received from the Cubs blew away what they gave up originally to Cincinnati. I mean, Gleyber Torres was the number 1 overall prospect in the entire Cubs organization, and people will say, well, why would the Cubs do that? They didn't want to give up Kyle Schwarber, who obviously coming off major knee surgery, is no longer a prospect. They didn't want to give up Javier Baez. Why would you give up the number 1 prospect? And yeah, it's a little confusing, but then you look at the Cubs' current makeup, and they've got Addison Russell, who I think is only 22 years old, and he's their starting shortstop. And if he continues to develop with the bat, should be their shortstop for the next 12 seasons. So, Torres was expendable. They also got Billy McKinney, who I actually really like. I think he's a little bit stronger of a Brett Gardner type outfielder, a little slap and run type of guy. He was the number 5 prospect in the entire Cubs organization. They got an outfielder by the name, I'm escaping me at the moment. I know his first name is Rashad. I think it's Rashad Crawford, right? Rashad Crawford? Yeah. We didn't really know a lot about him. He was drafted in 2012 straight out of high school, but he's got a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, still developing. He could be a guy in 2 or 3 years from now, all of a sudden comes on and starts to make his mark. But he might have been a throw-in. And then of course they got Adam Warren, who was with the Yankees actually a year and a half ago, when he was included in the Sterling Castro trade. So if you look at the way that Brian Cashman kind of constructed this deal, it's kind of like he only traded Chapman now for not only Castro, but the 4 guys he got in return. So it's a great trade. The Yankees are still in that murky water area of will they contend, won't they contend, and it's interesting because since they traded Chapman, they've actually won 2 out of 3 games against the Houston Astros. So again, the Yankees didn't necessarily wave the white flag by trading Chapman because they had plenty of other options in the bullpen with Betances and Miller. It'll be more interesting to see now with only 3 days to go until the trade deadline is what do they do with Carlos Beltran, their other other free agent to be. You know, there's if they're going to do a rebuild, you know, now's the time. You don't want to be stuck with a guy at the end of the season where you have to offer a qualifying offer. And I actually wrote a piece about that today on Yanks Go Yard about how the qualifying offer is going to go up next season to almost $17 million a season. And so if you slap him with that tag and no one signs him, now you're paying a 40-year-old guy that can only DH $17 million for one season. And, you know, the Yankees still have Alex Rodriguez, and they could use some starting pitching. So you want to trade, you trade him now before the non-waiver deadline. Otherwise, come, you know, August 2nd, any player has to pass through waivers. And usually that doesn't happen because, you know, who's a team in the American League that is any good that's going to let another team acquire Carlos Beltran? It's just not going to happen. So you trade him now, you continue what you've done, you're stockpiling assets, and that's what the Yankees have neglected for years. They're always, you know, let's go out and sign this guy, you know, let's overpay for him, let's trade the prospect. So it's a change of thinking. It's a little different than what most Yankee fans are accustomed to, but it's not a bad thing. It's actually pretty smart because when and if the day comes that Jorge Mateo, the number one prospect in the Yankee organization, who is a shortstop, is ready to go, you can either trade him, you can trade Torres, who they're going to move to second base, or you can trade current shortstop Didi Gregorius if they do decide to acquire a hitter or a pitcher. So again, you're stockpiling assets. The kid's only 19. He's not going to play this year or next year. You know, you're probably looking at a 2018, you know, call up to the big league. So there's a lot of time to go. Maybe some Yankee fans aren't really happy that, you know, we've gave away a huge piece. The guy who just threw a fastball 105.1 miles an hour for the fastest recorded fastball in the history of the game. Very exciting. But again, you got to look at it from an outsider's point of view. It's smart for the long haul.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I'm an NFL guy, but I have my pulse on MLB also. And John Heyman of today's Knuckleball also said that the Yankees have inquired multiple times about Chris Sale, who we'll get into more in a bit. But if they had Chris Sale, do you see them still surging up the AL East to contend for a spot in the playoffs?
Not this year. Unfortunately, their offense is just way too inconsistent. And you look to 2 nights ago when they played Houston and they were going for the sweep, and Toronto lost and the Red Sox lost, and they had an opportunity to move within like 5 games of the division and like 3, I think it was 2.5 or 3 games of the wild card, and they lost. Why? Because Lance McCullers, a young phenom pitcher for Houston, shut them down. 11 strikeouts. That's the thing. The Yankees pitching as of late has been really good. Michael Pineda, Nate Eovaldi since he came out of the bullpen. Tanaka's been really inconsistent, and it's frustrating because, you know, he's a $155 million man. Even Ivan Nova has been pretty good, and now that they called up Luis Severino, there's options there. And again, we've heard that a lot of teams are interested in possibly acquiring these pitchers from the Yankees because they're young, they're inexpensive, and next year's free agent class of pitchers is not very good. So yes, the Yankees could potentially acquire a guy like Sale, but it's going to take 5-6 minor league pieces to acquire said guy. And again, Sale's only 27, and he's locked up for, I believe, at least 2 more seasons that are relatively, or maybe even 3, relatively inexpensive roles. So as much as I would love Sale, and he would finally give the Yankees that number one, this team, as currently constructed, isn't ready to compete. Now, again, say Sale doesn't get dealt now, and the Yankees go into the offseason, and Mark Teixeira comes off the books, and Carlos Beltran is off the books, and a bunch of other players, and I think it's something they're freeing up like $90 million over the next 2 seasons when A-Rod and Sabathia come up. Now could be the time to grab a guy like Sale to cash in those chips, because now you've got the room to really make a move. But as currently constructed, it's kind of a lateral movement because you got rid of Chapman and you got a bunch of things, but you're going to cash him in for Sale. And even though he's really good, he's a little bit of a knucklehead, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm just not ready to say that these Yankees, as they're currently constructed, can compete because their offense is just not where it needs to be. And after Sale, where do you go? Like I said, Tanaka, one game he looks great, one game he looks horrendous. There's been reports that he needs to pitch every 6 days like he did in Japan to be effective. And unfortunately, the major leagues have a 5-man rotation, so you can't really add a 6-man. It throws off the entire timing of the rotation, and it just makes your bullpen that much weaker. So again, will he ever come around? I don't know, but as much as it is to have a nice guy at the top of your rotation like that, you really need to have a 2, a 3, and a 4. So while the Yankees really have a solid bullpen, still, even after trading Chapman, there's still a lot of work to be done. And unfortunately, as big a fan as I am, and I love to see them win, they're at least another year away from really contending in the ultra-strong American League East.
So there you have it, Yankees fans. No Sale for you. At least not yet. Maybe next year.
Not yet.
One thing that I kind of, you're probably going to be surprised about this, but I do agree with what Sale did. If you guys haven't heard, he actually cut up the 1976 throwback White Sox jerseys before it started because he felt they were uncomfortable and would affect his pitching mechanics. Now, he had a quote, and he kind of pinned this on Robin Ventura. I'm going to read the quote. He said, "Robin is the one who has to fight for us in that department. If the players don't feel comfortable 100% about what we're doing to win the game and we have an easy fix, it was easy as hanging up another jersey and everyone was fine. For them to put business first over winning, that's when I lost it." Now, again, he destroyed or shredded the jerseys because he felt like it would affect his gameplay. But I took a look at these jerseys, Mike, and they are ugly. They look like Boy Scout baseball club jerseys. I really don't like them.
Yeah, they have a collar. yeah,
They're
terrible. They look like soccer jerseys, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and they're all. It just looks sloppy, and it looks I don't know, but the guy actually did two things. He got suspended 5 games, but he only missed one start because again he's a pitcher, so that's one start in rotation. But again, the common theme is Robin Ventura not taking charge of his clubhouse. If you remember earlier in the year, Adam LaRoche had a situation with his kid in the clubhouse, and it seems like Robin Ventura really didn't have control over that, so Kenny Williams had to step in. But I think this is another indictment on Ventura. He needs to go. He obviously doesn't have control of what's going on because if Sale felt that Robert Ventura would actually do something about it, he would have went to Robert Ventura and they would have come to a settlement. But instead, he took matters into his own hands and did what he did. So again, Ventura, he's got to go.
Yeah, Ventura is just holding the seat warm until somebody else, maybe a Joey Coro who's been a coach in the organization for a long time, or they hire somebody from out of the organization. But yeah, he's definitely lost control of that clubhouse. And any time that happens, you see things like this. I mean, Chris Sale, I think he missed his calling. Should have been a ninja because while the team was doing batting practice, this guy went in the dugout, the locker room, and shredded. No, I don't know how many, maybe all of the jerseys, because he was smart enough to know that he couldn't just cut up his because they would have just given him someone else's. He cut them all up, or a majority of them at least, to know that, hey, there's no way anyone's going to wear this. And the one thing that I'll agree with you on why, even though this is a little psychotic, it makes sense to a certain point because there's an unwritten rule in baseball that the starting pitcher of said game actually gets to choose the uniform. So if you know that Chris Sale, who is by far your best player, not only your best pitcher, is not going to be comfortable wearing a particular uniform, why would you let him? Because what it does, it puts your team at a disadvantage. If he's not comfortable, he's not going to pitch the way he does. And if you know Chris Sale's body type, he's a string bean. So an uncomfortable jersey on a really skinny, tall guy is not going to be comfortable. So he's not going to pitch well, and you're not going to win. So I get the fact that he said it's not about winning. It's about, having people come out and spending money on these ugly jerseys. And it's about the marketing aspect of, come watch your White Sox wear a throwback. And, I get it. The White Sox stink. They're looking to sell tickets as much as they can, but you still need to be concerned about the product on the field. And the thing that I thought about above all of this is, would this hurt the White Sox if they decided to trade Chris Sale? Because the thing is as good as he is and as dominant as he can be over the next, who knows, 3, 4, 5 years, will a team potentially take a chance on a knucklehead who's willing to slice and dice his way to getting exactly what he wants? And he was the guy that kind of led the revolt in the preseason during spring training, during the LaRoche incident, and basically he said, we're not going to take the field today. We stand behind our players. And I get that he's a clubhouse guy, he's a team player. If you're a player in that organization, you love a guy like this. But if you're a fan or you're the guy that's paying him, I pay you to wear a certain jersey. So I see both sides of it. It'll be interesting. I definitely think that if they do decide to trade him, which they should, because this team needs a complete revamping, they'll still get enough for him. They may not get exactly what they had hoped for, say, a week and a half ago. But, yeah, he should go. The White Sox should trade David Robertson, who's an ex-Yankee closer. They should trade Todd Frazier. This is a team that needs to completely revamp itself from head to toe. And I think anybody that's a White Sox fan would agree, because they're just treading water, and they've been treading water, I don't know, for like 4 or 5 seasons right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But real quick, I know ESPN has Buster only, but we have Mike Calandrillo. So I want Mike to tell us what's going on in the trade mill and in the trade machine for MLB right now, because I know there are trades going on with the deadline approaching quickly.
Yeah, it's starting to heat up. It's been slow, and I've said this for a while now. Ever since the implementation of the second wild card, there's a lot more teams that feel they're in it. You know, they're in it to win it, which is great for fans, but not necessarily fun for us to talk about. But you know, there's starting to be a couple trades. The San Francisco Giants acquired Twins infielder Eduardo Nunez, and for you Mets and Yankees guys, you've heard this name. He used to play for the Yankees. Was never really that good. Well, kind of put it all together this year. He's 29, and he finally became an all-star. Now, you may say, well, anybody become an all-star on the Minnesota Twins, and I wouldn't necessarily argue with you. But he's leading off. He's hitting over 300. He's got 25 stolen bases, and he's going to a team at San Francisco that needs a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Matt Duffy, the third baseman, has been either really bad or hurt for the majority of the year. Joe Panik, the second baseman, is just finally coming back from an injury where he missed almost a month, and they had Ramiro Pena playing second, another ex-Yankee. Nunez can also play the outfield, and they've been without Hunter Pence now for almost 2 months, so you can plug him in right or left field. Look, he's going to give you a guy that's not going to, win you the World Series by himself, but it's a guy that can hold down a position, for a long while until they get their other pieces back, or could fill in as a third baseman, because again, Duffy wasn't exactly setting the world ablaze. And they gave up young left-handed pitcher Alberto Mejia. Again, a guy's 19 years old. Who knows what he's going to be? Time will tell. Now, the big trade, and the one that, according to sources, is going to start the domino effect here with only 3 days remaining till the trade deadline, is that the Miami Marlins acquired Andrew Cashner and Colin Ray from the San Diego Padres. Now, Cashner's not a bad pitcher. If you remember, a couple years ago, he was actually dealt from the Chicago Cubs to San Diego for Anthony Rizzo, who now is a big-time all-star, one of the best first basemen in all of baseball. So Cashner is kind of a little bit of a letdown, but he's a guy that, when healthy, can eat up innings. And again, the Marlins needed somebody behind Jose Fernandez to compete. And obviously, the Marlins still in second place right now in running for that wild card. But the big thing of why that this is potentially could be a domino effect is that the Marlins gave up their top first base prospect, Josh Naylor, and a young right-handed throwing pitcher, Luis Castillo. But Naylor was their first-round pick last year. I believe he was the 12th overall pick in the draft, and he was a top 100 prospect according to MLB.com already. So it was kind of surprising to see the Marlins give up this guy, especially this is a club that needs a first baseman. Justin Bour, he's okay. He's a young guy himself, but he's not exactly doing a whole lot right now. He's been off and on the DL this year. So for the Marlins to give up a guy like Naylor and Castillo, who are two big prospects, it signals to the club and fans that this team is ready to compete, which is always, fun to see. Marlins got plenty of young guys, so I guess they felt these two were expendable. But, could they have gotten more? Maybe. A lot of teams were asking for those two from the Marlins. So for them to kind of, I guess, decide that Cashner was the best of the best, okay, so be it. Ray's only 26. He could come out of the bullpen. He's club controlled for at least 3 or 4 more years. So, again, not a bad trade. Hopefully for the Marlins it pans out. Otherwise, it's always dangerous to trade prospects for guys that, are iffy. But, again, prospect is just that. It's a dangerous word right now, and I try to tell Yankee fans that all the time, is we're so fixated on these prospects of what could be. But how many prospects really make it? There's too many prospects, and not all of them are going to get to that level. So if you've got a guy that at least is a proven commodity as a professional, sometimes you got to pull the trigger. If it comes back to bite you, so be it. But what happens if the Marlins go ahead and win the World Series this year? Well, then it was worth it. Not saying that right now that they're in the prime pole position to do so, but again, anything's possible. If you're looking to make moves that are going to benefit the team right now, I'm all for it. So, good trade. I can't wait to see what happens over the next 3 days. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about, come this time next week. But Mo, do you see your Mets doing anything? Do you want them to do anything? Because I watched Yaza the other night play for Cespedes, and he's just horrible.
Yeah, I don't see the Mets doing anything major. They might do something minor. I really can't think of what they could do right now, but as presently constructed, it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, especially with the Marlins making moves and stuff like that. But I don't see anything major before the deadline. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Well, that is it for for everybody's favorite segment, really, building momentum.
That was everything from A to Z from Mike. I mean, Take that Buster only. Mike is there. He's right behind you. Give this guy an MLB reporting job. He just gave rundown in probably under 5 minutes.
I appreciate it. And I'm only 33, so I can reach a younger target audience instead of, the old men of the world, which is fine. Hey, you're great at what you do. Shots fired. But you know what? You know what? Bryce Harper wants to talk to me. He don't want to talk to his grandfather. So that's all I have to say about that. But
you guys gonna compare hair products?
Yeah, well, you know what? We could be hair models for like Vidal Sassoon, and we could set the Paris world ablaze with our flowing locks. But that's neither here nor there. We're gonna be back with the wrap up, and Mo's gonna Mo likes to get real deep. So we're gonna talk some important stuff. We're gonna talk the inclusion of the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan. We'll be right back.
The wrap-up.
As you all know by now, if you've been listening to the Mike and Mo Show, there is something every week that grinds my gears. And one of those things this week was the outrage on Michael Jordan. He actually did something good, and people are still outraged over it. I don't get it, but let's get into the specifics. Jordan donated $1 million to the ICP, which is the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Their Institute of Community Police Relations received $1 million, and also the NAACP Legal Defense Fund received $1 million. So, with that said, people are saying, well, what took Michael Jordan so long to have this social awareness about him, to be socially conscious? Why did it take him so long? His brand must be threatened by what's going on. And to those people, I say one simple thing. It's never too late to do the right thing. Okay? Number two, you cannot compare him to guys like Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those guys are in a different realm as far as it goes when you speak about social matters. They're out in the open with theirs. MJ is not, okay? And that's fine too. It doesn't make it better or worse whether you're out in the front or you're behind the scenes doing things, donating, or whatever you do to help your community. Just keep in mind, Michael Jordan lost his dad to senseless gun violence when in his earlier years. But that's besides the point. We also have to remember that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar kind of took a shot at MJ when he said he took commerce over his conscience. That's unfortunate for him, but he's got to live with it. That was a shot at him, at Michael Jordan, reportedly saying that Republicans buy shoes too, when I believe he was asked, is he going to support Democratic candidate Harvey Gantt? But apparently there's refutable evidence. Maybe he said it as a joke, or maybe he didn't say Republicans buy shoes too at all. That's up for debate. But the point is, people are coming down on Michael Jordan for basically not being like Ali or Brown or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I say, don't compare him to those guys. He's Michael Jordan. Number two, there are people saying, well, Michael Jordan must be speaking out socially because his brand is threatened, blah, blah, blah. He has never done this before. Let me run down some instances for those who are not informed about the situation. Now, again, I got this from The Undefeated, which is on ESPN, which is an African-American realm within ESPN. They write stories centered around African-Americans for the most part. And through the story, it talks about Jordan speaking out and doing things for the African-American community that you guys who are listening to the show, and even in myself, I wasn't aware of. Number one, he spoke out against Donald Sterling and his insensitive racial comments years ago. Donald Sterling was the owner of the Clippers, and he was ousted for his insensitive comments that was recorded. Jordan spoke out against the anti-LGBT H2 bill in North Carolina. He wrote a letter and expressed his disgust over that. And the most important thing to the African American community, he's actually putting people in positions to succeed. He's giving them jobs, people. The Hornets have more people of color holding top front office positions than any sports organization in a major sport in America. What does that mean? He's putting money in pockets. So when you say, oh, Jordan doesn't do anything for the African American community, he doesn't donate this, he doesn't do that, he's giving people work more than any other sports organization in America. What more can he do besides that? So all you people saying, oh, Jordan does nothing for his people, please check his record because it's totally false. And again, me and Mike spoke about this in the previous segment about bogus stories. There's bogus stories about, oh, but Jordan invests in prisons. Well, I did my research, and apparently that's not the right Michael Jordan. Apparently the Michael Jordan you're referring to investing in prisons was an I believe, congressman, or he was governor of Oregon. You can check the records on that. It's not the same Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is a very common name. There are like 5 running around the media right now. One's doing movies with Kobe Bryant. Okay, so be sure to check your facts before you spout out something that's potentially false and damaging to someone's image. Because I see even people with big platforms spreading this rumor about Michael Jordan investing in prisons, and it's simply not true. And people complaining about Jordan sneakers are too high, and this is why kids are killing each other over his sneakers. If Michael Jordan lowered the price of his sneakers to $100, they would still sell out, and kids would still kill each other and rob each other over them. So that's not going to stop or solve the problem. But the main point is, please, if you're out there slandering Michael Jordan for his disconnection with the African American community, it's simply not true. If you want to check it out, go to the Hornets front office or their headquarters and just look at their staff. Just look at their staff, because last time I checked, I don't know, your favorite rapper, whoever it is that you look up to, how many jobs are they giving people? How many jobs are they providing for their people? Because Michael Jordan is actually doing it.
It's just such a shame that we as a population are so jaded that even when a celebrity is doing the right thing, that we still try to pinpoint the negative. And then even to go so far as to make up things or to purposely not do your diligence and find false stories about a wrong Michael Jordan. It's like, why spend so much time looking at the negative? Why not direct all that energy and time spent on the positive and trying to move the social conscious in the right direction? I just don't get it, man. Like it just, I don't know if it's just the way of the world because of social media, where everybody has a voice or thinks that they are, I don't know, entitled to it. Because, you know, even when we write articles as writers ourselves, the people that spend so much time just bashing or trying to pick apart pieces, why? If you have something to say, why put all that negative connotation on it? I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And how you can say Michael Jordan's only doing this because he's worried about the bottom line. Michael Jordan doesn't need another dollar. His kids don't need another dollar. His great grandkids don't need another dollar. So, you know what? If you're so fixated on just that, then you really need to take a look in the mirror and decide what's important, because you're going about it all wrong.
You're absolutely right, and people just gravitate toward negative. Again, I posted the article on Michael Jordan. I told people, if you have a negative view of Michael Jordan, that he doesn't do anything for the African American community, please read this article by Mike Wise on The Undefeated, because it's absolutely telling as far as what he does behind the scenes. And it got maybe a couple of likes and a couple of people commented on it, but I guarantee you, if I posted an article about Michael Jordan getting arrested for something or being racially insensitive, that article would have got shared 50 million times, 50 million likes, because people like drama, and I think that's part of what society is today. Because with reality TV coming up over the past years, this is what people like. They like entertainment, and it's sad that a person's downfall or when a person does something wrong is entertaining to people, whereas when they do something good, it's like, well, okay. Or like you said, they just pick holes. Oh, why did it take him so long? Why did he do this? What's the motive? And I'm like, well, if somebody does something wrong, you're never questioning the motive. You go, oh, this is a horrible person. We always paint people as guilty before they're proven innocent. And then when something good happens, they go, well, what's behind it? What's the strings attached? And I think it's just totally backwards. And we're not giving people the benefit of the doubt who may deserve it. And again, if you're not close to Michael Jordan, you don't know him personally, he deserves the benefit of the doubt in this situation, because again, he's been doing things for the African American community that people are not aware of, that they need to read up on, because you're basically slandering this man, and it really needs to stop.
I mean, people complain when you don't do anything, and people complain when you do something. So, I mean, obviously, you cannot make everyone happy. But then, you know, people for years were saying Carmelo Anthony's not a leader. He doesn't stand up for his teammates or, you know, the African American community. And now all of a sudden he comes out and he's all about uniting everyone and doing what he can. And there's still stories about, well, he's doing it because, you know, he wants to be the leader of the Knicks, so that's why he's trying to unite the African American. And it's like, are you serious? Like, are you even like drawing a correlation between the two? Like, come on. I mean, either get over yourself or read a book. Like, there's so much more to it than what it's not just black and white. It's not just stop reading the headline on a piece. I hate when people will read the headline and then comment. click the link if it's a legitimate source and read the story, because the person that spent the time actually doing the research and citing their sources did his or her due diligence and wrote a piece. So by you just not taking the time to really explore it and just assuming because an 8 or 9 sentence for to grab a headline makes you feel one way or the other, you're doing that person a disservice. So before you do that, stop, take the extra 4 minutes it might take to read the piece, and then if you still feel strongly about it, then air your dirty laundry to the world. Otherwise, do us all a favor, stop, because nobody really wants to hear you who, regardless if you have any type of formal training, just because you have an opinion doesn't mean we all want to hear it. If you want to be taken seriously, write about something serious. Write something about with passion. Write something with actual sources cited. Go ahead and do some work. But just blowing out these asinine comments or these things that have no backing or relevance makes you look uneducated and foolish.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you mentioned headline writing, and I'm sure you're familiar with this because you're also an editor of a site. But it's tough because as an editor, you want to write a catchy headline to catch people's eye. And then on the other side, if you catch people's eye, sometimes they just read, like you said, they just read the headline. They don't read the article, which goes in depth about what the headline is about. They just read the headline and make up their mind.
Yeah.
Quick story, I posted a Knicks article saying where they rank right now in the Eastern Conference, and I had them 6th place. Now, that's a whole different discussion for a different day. But in the headline, I put, where do the Knicks stand? And then I guess someone read the first line of the article, which ESPN said the Knicks weren't even a playoff team. So then he comments on the article and says, "Oh, I can't believe this, you're a hater. The Knicks are a playoff team." And I comment back and I'm like, what are you talking about? If you read the article and go through the slideshow, you would see that I had the Knicks 6th seed. But no, he just read the first 10 words and goes, "Oh, you're a hater."
Yeah.
And that's the problem today. People do not. It's funny because we have access to technology. We have so much access. And we're still missing a lot of information because people don't go the extra yard. People are too lazy to go the extra yard to get the real information. They just want a shortcut. And it's not working out. And this is how you get rumors and viral things go out and misinformation left and right, because you have so much garbage online and you have so many lazy people reading garbage and then spreading it around. And this is why we're all confused, not just in the sports world, but in society and politics as well. You got rumors going out. Oh, Hillary's a liar, Trump is a racist. And that's the big thing now. And that's being fed to the people as fear to say, oh, vote against this person because this person is a racist. Vote against this person because this person is a liar, and will probably have us in war the second day she's in the presidency. So people, check your sources, read. As Mike said, pick up a book, go in depth before you open your mouth and have an opinion, because a lot of people have influence with their opinions. Before you get on a radio show like me and Mike do, we do our research before we get on. Before we write an article, we do hours of research. There is time and effort being put into this. Do your due diligence, read these pieces, get to the depth of things. Don't just make a decision based on the headline or based on what he said or she said. Do your research, because in that sense, you make the world a better place as far as information is concerned. People become more informed with what you have to say if you're credible. So again, do your research.
Yeah, and if you do, you'll be amazed at how much more credibility you will have and how much better informed you will be, and how you can actually hold a conversation instead of just but or I or no. And you know what? Take your emotion out of it. That's the biggest thing. Take the emotion out of it and save it for when you can actually back it up with stats or figures or timeline or whatever it might be. But when, it's interesting. Everybody's going to have their own opinion at the end of the day. But you know what? If you want to share that opinion, drop us a line. It's mentalitymedia.com/podcast. Tell us what you want to talk about. Whatever it might be, as long as it's not ridiculous and blasphemous and any other this kind of type of words, we're all about it. We want to hear your opinion. We'll talk sports. We want to have people on. So either hit us up on social media, Mike and Mo Show at Twitter, or Mike and Mo Show on Facebook. And, we want to start having some some segments where we bring on live guests or we read your tweet, because we want to know exactly what you want to talk about. We feel like we are doing, we're doing our part to continue the narrative. But again, getting your voice on air is just something that will help that to move it even further along. And of course, go to that same mentalitymedia.com/podcast and sign up for the Mike and Mo Fantasy Football League, which I will win, but it'll still be fun to dominate you and any of your friends that feel like playing, especially when I play Mo, because I cannot wait to destroy him.
Real quick question.
Yeah.
Is that fantasy league, what platform is that fantasy league going to be on?
I mean, we haven't decided. We could do it. I mean, something inexpensive. So, I mean, we could do it like NFL.com, or we could do, I mean, I don't even know if Yahoo still exists because I haven't played that in like forever, but usually I play CBS, so I mean, something like that.
Whatever the platform is, I'll win regardless. It does not matter. I'll take you out. I'll take Laura out. Any of my friends listen to the show, I'll take you out. It doesn't matter because I am Mo. And as you heard today, I am an NFL guru. Forget all the guys you hear on TV. Forget Adam Schefter. I'm the guy you want to talk to when it comes down to information. Absolutely. He may break the news, but I have the on-point analysis. So there you go. On that one, you stand no chance.
It's very true. I mean, you're going to lose, but you are very well, spoken, and you know your stuff. So, hey, if anybody wants some information, take it from Mo. If he has some great insight, just don't follow his fantasy football thought of because you don't want to be a guy that comes in last or next to last. You want to win. Like me. But regardless, it's still that time to go to iTunes, Mike and Mo Show. Just type it in the little podcast section. Download, rate, review. Keep those comments coming. We're getting some great stuff. Everything you do helps us become relative in the world of a podcast, and that's what's important. We're starting to get some great feedback via social media. Those numbers keep going up, so we are greatly appreciative of everything that you, the listeners, do. And again, we're doing it for you. So Mo, before we sign off, anything else you want to share with the good people here on the internet?
Again, look out for that piece today. I predict the win-loss records for each NFL team. If you're a fan of a good team, you might agree with it. If you're a fan of a crappy team, you might curse at me, but that's fine. It's on point. It's accurate. It's the truth. It's reality. Okay, I'm keeping it 100. I'm keeping it G. Okay, 100%. You already know if you follow my Twitter how I roll.
Absolutely, keeping it 92% because that's what it's all about. But this time next week will be another week closer to the start of the NFL season, and we will recap some of hopefully what are the big trades in the world of Major League Baseball. Until then, I'm Mike AndmoeShowEpisode24. He's Maurice Moten, and always we'll see you next week. Take care.